My name is Alex Chen, and I'm a 28-year-old cybersecurity specialist living in San Francisco. What I'm about to tell you is the true story of how I accidentally stumbled upon one of the largest bank heists in modern history, and how my decision to do the right thing led me down a path that would change my life forever. It all began on a rainy Tuesday evening in March 2023. I was working late at my home office, debugging a security protocol for a client, when I noticed something unusual. In my network monitoring software, there was an anomalous data stream passing through one of the proxy servers. I maintained a massive file transfer that shouldn't have been happening. As a cybersecurity professional, I've always been naturally curious about digital anomalies. My job involves protecting companies from cyber threats. So when I see something that doesn't belong, my instinct is to investigate. What I discovered that night would lead me into the most dangerous and morally complex situation of my life. The data stream was encrypted, but the volume and timing suggested it was something significant. Using my professional tools, I began tracing the source and destination of the transfer. What I found made my blood run cold. The transfer was coming from the internal servers of Pacific National Bank, one of the largest financial institutions. On the West Coast, the destination was a series of cryptocurrency wallets that had been carefully designed to obscure the identity of their owners. This can't be right, I muttered to myself, running the trace again. But the results were consistent. Someone was siphoning massive amounts of money from Pacific National Bank's accounts and converting it to untraceable digital currency. I had stumbled upon a bank heist in progress. My first instinct was to call the FBI immediately, but my professional training kicked in. If I was going to report this, I needed to gather enough evidence to make sure the authorities could act effectively. A half-baked report might allow the criminals to escape or destroy evidence. Over the next 6 hours, I worked feverishly to document everything I could about the theft. Using a combination of network analysis tools and my knowledge of financial systems, I began to piece together the scope of the operation. The hackers had gained access to Pacific National Bank's internal network through what appeared to be a sophisticated spear phishing attack. They had spent weeks, possibly months, moving laterally through the bank's systems, mapping the network and identifying high-value targets. But this wasn't a smash-and-grab operation. These criminals were methodical, patient, and extremely skilled. They had created a complex web of shell companies, cryptocurrency exchanges, and offshore accounts designed to launder the stolen money and make it virtually impossible to trace. I dug deeper into their operation. I realized I was looking at something unprecedented. The total amount being stolen was approaching $20 million. But more importantly, the techniques being used were so sophisticated that they could be replicated against any major financial institution. These aren't just thieves, I said aloud, staring at my screens full of data. They're cyber terrorists. The more I learned about their methods, the more I realized that this wasn't just about one bank robbery. The tools and techniques they were using could destabilize the entire financial system if they fell into the wrong hands. But as I continued my investigation, I made a discovery that changed everything. The hackers had made a critical mistake. In their haste to move the money, they had used a cryptocurrency exchange that I had previously helped secure during a consulting project. I still had administrative access to certain monitoring systems, and when I checked the transaction logs, I found something incredible. The stolen money was still there. The hackers had successfully transferred $20 million from Pacific National Bank, but due to a technical glitch in their laundering process, the funds were stuck in a series of intermediate accounts. They were frantically trying to move the money to their final destination, but their own sophisticated security measures were working against them. I found myself in an impossible position. I had the ability to stop the theft and return the money to the bank, but doing so would require me to access systems without authorization, technically making me a hacker myself. For the next hour, I sat in my office weighing my options. I could call the FBI and let them handle it through official channels, but that would take time, and the criminals might figure out how to complete their theft before the authorities could act. Or I could take matters into my own hands, I thought, about all the innocent people who would be affected if this theft succeeded. Bank customers who might lose their savings, employees who might lose their jobs, and the broader economic impact of a successful attack on the financial system. I made my decision. Using my knowledge of the cryptocurrency exchange's systems, I began the process of freezing the stolen funds. It was delicate work. I had to make it look like a system malfunction rather than deliberate intervention, in case the hackers were monitoring the accounts. Over the next 3 hours, I systematically locked down every account and wallet that contained the stolen money. I created automated scripts that would prevent any further transfers while making it appear that the exchange was experiencing technical difficulties. By 4 a.m., I had successfully frozen all $20 million of the stolen funds, but I knew this was only the beginning. The hackers would soon realize what had happened, and they would either try to find another way to access the money or simply disappear. If I wanted to make sure they faced justice, I needed to act quickly. I spent the rest of the night documenting everything I had discovered and preparing a comprehensive report for the FBI. I included detailed logs of the hackers' activities, evidence of their methods, and most importantly, the location of the stolen funds. At 8 a.m. sharp, I called the FBI Cybercrime Division. "This is Special Agent Sarah Martinez," came the voice on the other end. "Agent Martinez, my name is Alex Chen. I'm a cybersecurity consultant, and I need to report a major bank theft in progress. I have evidence that hackers have stolen $20 million from Pacific National Bank, and I know where the money is." There was a pause before she responded. "Mr. Chen, these are serious allegations. Are you prepared to come in and provide a full statement?" "Yes, but there's something else you need to know. I've temporarily frozen the stolen funds to prevent the thieves from escaping with the money, but my actions were technically unauthorized." Another pause, longer this time. "Mr. Chen, I need you to come to our San Francisco office immediately, and I strongly recommend you bring a lawyer." As I hung up the phone, I realized that my life was about to change dramatically. I had done what I believed was right, but I had also broken several federal laws in the process. The question now was whether the FBI would see me as a hero or a criminal. I gathered all my evidence, backed up my files to multiple secure locations, and prepared for what I knew would be the most important meeting of my life. But as I was getting ready to leave for the FBI office, my computer chimed with an incoming message. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. The message was from an encrypted email address I didn't recognize, but the content made it clear who had sent it. "We know who you are, Alex Chen. We know where you live, and we know what you did to our money. You have 24 hours to reverse what you've done, or you'll face consequences you can't imagine. This is not a game." The hackers had found me. I realized that by interfering with their operation, I had painted a target on my back. These weren't just sophisticated cybercriminals, they were dangerous people who wouldn't hesitate to use violence to protect their interests. As I drove to the FBI office, I kept checking my rearview mirror, wondering if I was being followed. I had thought that doing the right thing would be the end of the story, but I was beginning to realize that it was only the beginning. The meeting with Agent Martinez would determine whether I would be treated as a cooperating witness or a criminal. Suspected, but more importantly, it would determine whether the FBI could protect me from the criminals who now saw me as their greatest threat. As I walked into the federal building, I knew there was no turning back. I had chosen to fight against some of the most dangerous cybercriminals in the world, and now I had to face the consequences of that decision. But I also knew that $20 million in stolen money was sitting in frozen accounts, waiting to be returned to its rightful owners. And somewhere out there, a group of criminals was planning their next attack on the financial system. The question was, would the FBI see me as an ally in stopping them, or would they see me as just another hacker who had broken the law? The answer to that question would determine not just my future, but the future of cybersecurity and the safety of the financial system itself. The FBI field office in San Francisco was exactly what I had expected: sterile, intimidating, and filled with the kind of serious-faced agents you see in movies. But Agent Sarah Martinez was different from what I had imagined. She was in her early 40s, with sharp eyes that suggested both intelligence and skepticism, but also a warmth that put me slightly at ease. "Mr. Chen," she said as she led me to an interview room, "before we begin, I want you to understand that everything you tell me will be recorded and could potentially be used in court proceedings. You have the right to have an attorney present." "I understand," I replied, though my palms were sweating. "But I want to help catch these criminals. What they're doing threatens everyone." Agent Martinez studied me for a moment before sitting down across from me. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." For the next 2 hours, I walked her through my discovery of the theft, my investigation into the hackers' methods, and my decision to freeze the stolen funds. I showed her the evidence I had gathered, explained the technical details of the attack, and provided her with the locations of all the frozen accounts. "This is impressive work," she admitted, reviewing my documentation. "But you realize that by accessing these systems without authorization, you've potentially compromised any legal case we might build against these criminals." My heart sank. I was trying to prevent them from getting away with the money. "I understand your motivations, Alex, and frankly, what you've done has probably saved Pacific National Bank from a devastating loss, but we need to figure out how to proceed legally." Agent Martinez left the room for about 20 minutes, during which I sat alone wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. When she returned, she was accompanied by a man in his 50s wearing an expensive suit. "Alex, this is Assistant U.S. Attorney David Park. He's going to be handling the prosecution of this case." David Park sat down and opened a thick file. "Mr. Chen, Agent Martinez has briefed me on your situation. What you've done presents us with both an opportunity and a challenge." "What kind of opportunity?" "You've given us unprecedented insight into a sophisticated criminal organization. The evidence you've gathered could help us not just prosecute these specific criminals, but understand and prevent similar attacks in the future. And the challenge: your methods were illegal. Under normal circumstances, we'd be looking at charging you with unauthorized access to computer systems, wire fraud, and potentially other federal crimes." I felt my stomach drop. "So what happens now?" Agent Martinez leaned forward. "We're prepared. to offer you immunity from prosecution in exchange for your full cooperation in this investigation. But that cooperation would go far beyond just providing evidence. What do you mean? We want you to help us catch these criminals, David Park explained. Your technical skills and your knowledge of their methods make you uniquely qualified to assist in this investigation. You want me to work with the FBI? As a consulting expert, Agent Martinez clarified. You'd be working under our supervision, with legal authorization for any actions you take. Think of it as a chance to use your skills for the greater good. The offer was tempting, but I was also terrified. These people have already threatened me. They know who I am and where I live. We're aware of the threat, Agent Martinez said. We've already placed you under protective surveillance, and if you agree to work with us, we can provide more comprehensive protection. I thought about the threatening message I had received that morning. What exactly would you want me to do? First, we need you to help us trace the origins of this attack, David Park explained. Your evidence shows us what they did, but we need to understand who they are and where they're operating from. Second, Agent Martinez continued, we want to use your position to gather more intelligence. These criminals think they've identified you as a threat, but they don't know you're working with us. That gives us an advantage. You want me to communicate with them under controlled circumstances? Yes. We want to learn more about their organization, their capabilities, and their future plans. The idea of deliberately engaging with dangerous criminals was terrifying, but I also realized this might be the only way to truly stop them. If I agree to this, what guarantees do I have? Full immunity from prosecution for your actions in this case, David Park said. Federal protection for you and any family members. And if this operation is successful, we'd be open to discussing a more permanent consulting arrangement with the Bureau. I spent the next hour asking questions about the specifics of what they were proposing. The plan was complex but straightforward. I would continue to appear as an independent actor while actually working under FBI supervision. They would provide me with secure communication tools and backup support, while I used my technical skills to gather intelligence on the criminal organization. There's one more thing, Agent Martinez said as we were wrapping up. We've been in contact with Pacific National Bank. They're extremely grateful for what you've done, and they're prepared to offer you a substantial reward for recovering their money. How substantial? 10% of the recovered funds? That's $2 million. Alex, I was stunned. I had never imagined that doing the right thing could be so financially rewarding. But, David Park added, accepting that reward might complicate your legal situation. We'd recommend waiting until after the criminal case is resolved. I agreed to work with the FBI, and over the next week, I was given a crash course in federal law enforcement procedures. I learned how to use encrypted communication devices, how to document evidence in ways that would be admissible in court, and how to safely gather intelligence without compromising the duck investigation. My first assignment was to respond to the threatening message I had received from the hackers, working with FBI linguists and behavioral analysts. We crafted a response that would appear to show fear while actually gathering information about their organization. I didn't mean to interfere with your operation, I wrote. I was just trying to secure my own systems and accidentally discovered your activities. I'm willing to cooperate, but I need to know that my family will be safe. The response came with, ours. Meet us at the encrypted chat room. We're sending you coordinates for Come Alone, and come prepared to prove your loyalty. Agent Martinez and her team spent the next day preparing me for the online meeting. They set up monitoring equipment that would allow them to observe the conversation in real time while remaining undetected. Remember, Agent Martinez told me before the meeting, your goal is to gather information, not to be a hero. These people are dangerous, and we don't want to provoke them unnecessarily. The online meeting was unlike anything I had ever experienced. The hackers used sophisticated voice modulation software that made it impossible to identify their real voices. And they clearly had extensive knowledge of cybersecurity and financial systems. Alex Chen, said the apparent leader of the group, you've caused us significant inconvenience, but you've also demonstrated skills that could be useful to our organization. What kind of organization? I asked, following the script the FBI had prepared. Let's just say we're entrepreneurs who specialize in redistributing wealth from institutions that have too much to people who have too little. You mean you're thieves? We prefer to think of ourselves as digital Robin Hoods, another voice said with what sounded like amusement. The banks steal from ordinary people every day through fees, interest rates, and predatory lending. We just level the playing field. Over the next hour, they outlined their philosophy and hinted at the scope of their operations. They claimed to have successfully targeted dozens of financial institutions across multiple countries, stealing hundreds of millions of dollars over the past 3 years. The Pacific National job was supposed to be our retirement score, the leader explained. $20 million split among our core team would have allowed us to disappear permanently. What happens now? I asked. Now we need to decide whether you're an asset or a liability, the leader replied. We're prepared to offer you a choice. Join our organization and help us complete the Pacific National job, or face the consequences of your interference. What would joining your organization involve? We have another target lined up, a smaller bank in Nevada with weaker security. consider it a test of your loyalty and skills. Help us steal $5 million from them, and we'll consider you part of the team." After the meeting ended, I sat in the FBI office feeling sick to my stomach. These criminals were planning another attack, and they wanted me to help them commit it. "This is perfect," Agent Martinez said, reviewing the recording of the conversation. "They're giving us advance notice of their next target. We can set up a sting operation that will allow us to catch them in the act. But they want me to actually help them steal money." "You'll appear to help them," David Park clarified. "But in reality, you'll be helping us gather evidence and identify the members of their organization." The plan they outlined was complex and dangerous. I would appear to cooperate with the hackers while actually feeding information to the FBI. When the criminals attempted their next heist, federal agents would be waiting to arrest them. But as I left the FBI office that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in over my head. These weren't ordinary criminals, they were sophisticated, paranoid, and extremely dangerous. One mistake on my part could expose the entire operation and put both me and the FBI agents at risk. As I drove home under FBI surveillance, I realized that my decision to do the right thing had led me into a world I never could have imagined. I was now a federal informant, working to bring down one of the most sophisticated cybercriminal organizations in the world. The question was, would I survive long enough to see justice served? The next 2 weeks were the most intense and dangerous of my life. Working as an undercover informant for the FBI, while maintaining my cover with the cybercriminal organization, required a level of deception and mental compartmentalization I had never experienced before. The criminals had given me access to their secure communication network, which the FBI was now monitoring with my help. What we discovered was far more extensive than anyone had initially realized. Alex, Agent Martinez said during one of our daily briefings, "This organization is much larger than we thought. Based on the communications you've intercepted, they have at least 15 active members operating across 6 countries. The group called themselves the Redistribution Network, and their leader, who went by the codename Architect, was apparently a former NSA contractor who had gone rogue after becoming disillusioned with government surveillance programs. They're not just stealing money," I explained to the FBI team. "They're building a comprehensive toolkit for attacking financial institutions. Every successful heist teaches them new techniques that they're documenting and sharing." The FBI's cybercrime division had assembled a task force specifically for this case, including agents from multiple field offices and specialists from the NSA and Treasury Department. I found myself at the center of one of the largest cybercrime investigations in recent history. My role in their planned attack on the Nevada bank was to provide technical support for bypassing the bank's security systems. The FBI had coordinated with the bank to allow the attack to proceed while ensuring that no actual money would be stolen. "This is incredibly risky," David Park warned during one of our planning sessions. "If these criminals suspect that you're working with us, they could disappear permanently, or, worse, they could retaliate against you." The plan was for me to provide the hackers with what appeared to be legitimate access to the bank's systems, while actually giving the FBI complete visibility into their activities. When they attempted to transfer the stolen funds, federal agents would simultaneously arrest all known members of the organization. But as the date of the planned heist approached, I began receiving increasingly sophisticated tests of my loyalty. "From the criminals," Alex the Architect said during one of our encrypted video calls, "before we proceed with the Nevada operation, we need you to prove your commitment to our cause." "What kind of proof?" "We want you to steal $100,000 from your former employer's client accounts. Consider it an initiation fee." This was a problem the FBI hadn't anticipated. The criminals were asking me to commit a real crime against innocent people to prove my loyalty. "I can't do that," I said, trying to sound reluctant rather than defiant. "That would expose me to too much risk. My former employer knows my capabilities, and they'd immediately suspect me if money went missing." "Then find another target," another member of the group interjected. "We need to know that you're willing to cross the line before we trust you with our major operations." Agent Martinez and her team spent hours debating how to handle this situation. They couldn't allow me to actually steal money from innocent people, but refusing might blow my cover and destroy the entire operation. "We have an idea," Agent Martinez finally said. "We're going to set up a fake target, a shell company with accounts that appear to contain real money, but are actually controlled by the FBI. You can steal from these accounts to satisfy their requirements." The fake theft was elaborate and convincing. Working with FBI financial crimes specialists, I appeared to hack into the accounts of a fictitious investment firm and transfer $150,000 to cryptocurrency wallets controlled by the Redistribution Network. "Excellent work," the Architect said after reviewing evidence of my fake crime. "You're now officially part of our organization. Welcome to the revolution, Alex." Over the next few days, I was given access to the group's full operational plans. What I discovered was terrifying in its scope and sophistication. The Nevada bank heist was just one of 12 planned attacks, scheduled over the next 6 months. Their ultimate goal was to steal over $500 million. from various financial institutions and used the money to fund what they called economic disruption operations designed to destabilize the global financial system. They're not just criminals, I reported to Agent Martinez. They're domestic terrorists with a sophisticated ideological agenda. The FBI task force realized they were dealing with a threat to national security, not just a criminal organization. Additional resources were allocated to the investigation, including surveillance teams, technical specialists, and coordination with international law enforcement agencies. As the date of the Nevada operation approached, I found myself in an increasingly precarious position. The criminals were trusting me with critical aspects of their plan, but I was constantly afraid that one mistake would expose me as an FBI informant. The night before the planned heist, I received a message that made my blood run cold. Alex, we've been monitoring your activities, and we've noticed some irregularities in your digital footprint. Report to the secure location we're sending you tomorrow at 2 p.m. for a loyalty verification procedure. Agent Martinez immediately called an emergency meeting. They suspect something, she said. We need to move up the timeline for the arrests. What about the Nevada operation? I asked. If we don't let them attempt the heist, we won't have evidence of their criminal intent. We have enough evidence from their communications and planning documents, David Park assured me. Your safety is more important than getting additional charges, but I had an idea that would allow us to complete the operation while ensuring my safety. What if I don't show up for their loyalty verification? I suggested. Instead, I could send them a message claiming that I've discovered FBI surveillance and need to go into hiding. That would explain any suspicious activity they've noticed, while allowing the Nevada operation to proceed. Agent Martinez was skeptical. That's extremely risky. If they don't believe your story, they might retaliate. But if they do believe it, they'll proceed with the Nevada heist while thinking I'm in hiding. You can arrest them during the operation without exposing my role as an informant. After extensive debate, the FBI team agreed to try my plan. I sent a carefully crafted message to the redistribution network claiming that I had detected federal surveillance and was going underground to avoid arrest. I'm sorry, but I can participate in the Nevada operation, I wrote. The FBI is on to me, and I need to disappear for a while. Proceed without me, and I'll contact you when it's safe. The response was immediate and alarming. Alex, if you're compromised, you're a threat to all of us. We can't allow you to be captured and interrogated by federal agents. Agent Martinez immediately placed me in protective custody while the FBI task force prepared for the final phase of the operation. On the morning of the planned Nevada heist, federal agents were positioned at locations across the country, ready to simultaneously arrest all known members of the redistribution network. I watched from the FBI command center as the operation unfolded in real time. The criminals had proceeded with their attack on the Nevada bank, apparently believing that my absence was due to federal surveillance rather than betrayal. Target 1 is accessing the bank's network, reported the agent monitoring the Nevada operation. Target 2 is initiating the fund transfer protocols. At exactly 11:47 a.m., Agent Martinez gave the order, execute all arrest warrants. Take them down. Over the next 30 minutes, federal agents arrested 11 members of the redistribution network in 6 different cities. The architect was captured at a safe house in Portland, along with sophisticated computer equipment and detailed plans for future attacks. But the most satisfying moment came when Agent Martinez called me with an update on the Pacific National Bank money. Alex, we've successfully recovered and returned all $20 million to Pacific National Bank. The bank's board of directors has voted to award you the full $2 million recovery fee, and they want to offer you a position as their chief information security officer. The aftermath of the operation was surreal. I went from being a freelance cybersecurity consultant to being a key witness in one of the largest cybercrime prosecutions in U.S. history. The trial of the redistribution network members lasted 6 months. I testified about their methods, their plans, and the evidence I had helped gather. The architect and his core associates were sentenced to lengthy federal prison terms, and the techniques they had developed were shared with financial institutions worldwide to prevent similar attacks. Pacific National Bank not only gave me the $2 million reward, but also offered me a position that came with a salary higher than I had ever imagined. More importantly, they gave me the resources to develop new cybersecurity protocols that would protect not just their institution, but the entire financial system. 6 months after the arrests, Agent Martinez called me with news that brought the story full circle. Alex, we've received intelligence that the techniques you helped us understand have been used to prevent 17 other attempted bank heists. Your decision to do the right thing has protected hundreds of millions of dollars and countless innocent people. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. I received a letter from one of the trafficking victims who had been rescued using money recovered from previous redistribution network heists. Mr. Chen, the letter read, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I wanted you to know that your actions helped save my life. The money that was recovered was used to fund the organization that helped me escape and rebuild my life. Thank you for proving that there are still people willing to fight for what's right. As I read that letter in my new office at Pacific National Bank, I realized that my decision to return the stolen money had created a ripple effect of positive change that extended far beyond what I had ever imagined. The hackers who had threatened me were now in federal prison. The money they had stolen was back where it belonged, and the techniques we had developed to catch them were now protecting financial institutions around the world. But most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the most dangerous decision is also the most necessary one. When faced with the choice between personal safety and doing what's right, the courage to choose justice can change not just your own life, but the lives of countless others. The $20 million I returned to Pacific National Bank was just money, but the trust, justice, and security that resulted from that decision were priceless. Legal disclaimer. This story is completely fictional and was created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental.